We're going to call the meeting to order. Good morning. It is 8:35 on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. And this is the meeting of the Sandpoint Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission. We're now called to order. For the record, I am Chairwoman Ellie Sussness, presiding in City Hall, White Pine Room, located at 1123 Lake Street in Sandpoint, Idaho. Commission members present are Barry Burgess, Hannah Combs, Rick Decker, Keely Gray, and myself, Ellie Sussness. Absent is Karen Wiedemeyer. Kate McAllister's absent. Caitlin Shook is here via Zoom, and Mike Lithgow is absent. Perfect. Great. Okay. This is just a little backwards there. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's move on to the approval of the last month's minutes. The minutes from June 11th, 2024. Can I have a motion for that?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Rick. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion passes. All right, on to the financial report.
So our SURA numbers, we just received them at 7:30 this morning. From that meeting for the downtown district for the Arts Fund, we have $181,083.11. In the northern district, we have $100,590.02.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions on that? Very good.
And then we're going to be restructuring our agenda. We have new software, and I believe the software kind of changed us up a little bit this meeting. But we're going to move forward with it saying financial report and staff updates. Or city updates, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the update on the Sandpoint comprehensive plan. And I'm going to have Ellie speak to that because she's been such a champion being at every meeting.
Right, so we've had quite a few meetings for the comprehensive plan where the council and planning and zoning got together in a public hearing and went through the comprehensive plan draft page by page, sentence by sentence. And they discussed and made changes and took public comment for most of those meetings. And we finally will have the final draft and the public hearing on July 17th. And so that, this comprehensive plan is 5 years in the making because of various things. So it will be very good to have that updated. So I'm not sure if I will be there at the July 17th meeting, and I think it would be important for any of you that can show up to be there as well, to offer our support for that.
Is that a regular city council meeting?
It's, Tammy, that's not a regular.
Not now.
I
It would
don't
be
know
the
either.
third Wednesday. Meetings are not on.
I believe it is, and this will be a scheduled public hearing during it, which you have to do for comp plans according to the state.
It's not necessarily that there will be, if there's public comment, that there will be any changes. I mean, we're far enough along that it most likely will be a wrap up.
Thank you so much for being such an advocate for what we do within the comp plan. We are chapter 3, which is community character and design. And it was kind of a fun exercise that I did. I wish I had the visual for you, but you go through and look under arts, culture, and historic preservation, placemaking, wayfinding, we're literally almost pulled out in every single chapter. So it's a feel good moment, right?
Yeah, it's amazing actually, and it's quite a bit more comprehensive than our previous plan that we are, that we're working on under now. The other thing I was gonna say was. I lost it.
Okay, so our agenda, I think there was kind of a software glitch, so just disregard old business and then the new business. We're gonna move forward with just business. And then we'll be breaking things up into 3 categories. So it says old business, that's essentially arts. And then under the new business, that's going to be culture. And then the third will be historic preservation. And I think it will be just a strong way to be able to organize things. So just know moving forward, that will be changed a little bit. So moving on to art.
Moving on to art. So our next category is art. So number 3 is the ACHP work team recommendation for expenditure of SURA funds.
And I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a sheet here. So we had a work team come together to work on understanding our SURA funds. So Sandpoint Urban Renewal Agency sunsets in 2029. We all felt like it was an important thing to kind of understand what that 5-year plan would look like. And this isn't set in stone. What happens with SURA, you can, every time you do a project, you go and you present. So there is a little bit of flexibility, but I do think it makes sense if you kind of have a strategic method. And I think of this as like reserved buckets. And on our old agendas, you could always see that it had the silver box fund, and that was a method that they did in the past, where when they started the initiation of that program, they put a lump sum in there, and then every time they did a cycle, they pulled out. I thought that was a really strong method. And I also feel confident that this will help ensure future monies for programming moving forward. And so what we're doing today, this will be an actionable item. I'm going to be presenting what the work team came up with, and then as a group, we'll holistically decide on this. These numbers are not going to be exact. This is just focusing on the downtown district. And right now we have $1,000 more, let's say. We just were projecting from that $180,000. Of course, that money will be growing. So thinking about our ongoing programming, the walking tour, this is a really special opportunity because we incorporated art and we added the cultural chapters. SURA is able to fund it. So they have special qualifications what SURA can and can't do for projects and districts and so forth. So we always have to understand that. So the historic walking tour brochure, when we quoted this last year, it was we did a package quote of $9,700, and that actually included design fees. And so this is a little bit of rough math, but thinking about inflation, and every time we do this walking tour brochure, we do an update for about a 5-year period of time, and we do printing for approximately 5 years. So this program would be for 2 different cycles, and that would be capturing what we're doing right now and another printing in 5 years. So I put on there roughly $7,200 because that's going to be where we're probably going to end up with after we receive this grant, hopefully, because they do like matching funds, and then $10,000 for future printing. And I strongly feel like we will be under that $10,000 because SURA does like, the matching funds. A CEG grant from the Idaho State Historical Society is always a really good partner for this project. So I just put a rough figure of $17,200 for for that. And again, that would hypothetically be 10 years of brochures, 2 printings. Unless our population explodes and everybody wants a brochure, but each printing is 5,000 copies of the brochure. We typically do use about 1,000 a year. And then the second one is Graffiti Alley. We haven't talked a lot about this, and when there was a pause and a merge of the commissions, what happened was POAT graciously picked up the project and kept it going. But essentially, in its infancy, it was a project with the Arts Commission. And I have a couple of historian arts members here, so please correct me. And then Holly Walker, who's a teacher at the charter school. She was doing a class on graffiti art, and then the Ponderay Arts Council. And then we were a part of the project. I think we helped supported the project initially with Sura funding, trying to get it up and running. And then also there's the approval process because it is mural art. I would like to kind of have another meeting where we all get back on the same page and look at how our partnership can move forward. I believe the way that we can be a partner, though, is if we help support it financially too, which goes back to our master plan. When I first stepped into this position, POAC presented a budget to us. And essentially for just the supplies, it was around $1,000. I think it maybe a little bit under. So I think it would be wonderful to continue to be a partner with this project with Graffiti Alley. It is our urban art example in our community. It goes back to education and, you know, frankly, I get calls from all over. It's a huge tell me about the project. It's amazing. We have artists that want to participate in it. It's a great Instagram wall too. So the team is proposing to also add that as an ongoing program. So that would be 5 years of funding with Graffiti Alley. And then Silver Box is the art on loan program. You guys are historians here in the arts, spent so much time getting that up and running. And we do feel like at this point, all the bugs have been fixed in the program. And we did put this price on there, which included cafe. I think moving forward, we need to reconsider how we do our calls and our outreach. But this number 3,300 was the cost that included stipends for the artists and the labels and the call. And so this would be for 5 Silver Box art calls moving forward. And it is our sculptural art on loan project. I like how we're kind of hitting all these different mediums and different markets of people. And then the last one, and we're going to get into the details of this, is the downtown parking lot. And this is a great example where the city is working on a project and they come to us and they request our participation with placemaking, which would be art, history, and then wayfinding, and other things. So kind of bringing the creative vitality to a capital project. So we're earmarking 40,000 for the downtown parking lot. And then the remainder, so if you look at this totals about 102,000. So I think of this as our programming, and then the rest of that funding, which would be, you know, 80,000, could go into a future opportunity that comes our way for the downtown area. I keep hearing hopes of moving forward with the downtown streets revitalization phase 3, which would connect us down hopefully to Superior. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there. If we're able to achieve our goals with grant funding here at the city, we would hope to do possibly a roundabout, and that's a great opportunity for an art piece. I really think of the Superior First Point there as the gateway to Sandpoint. And I think we have a lot of dreams and aspirations within the city and as a community to have that be a little bit more of a welcoming spot. And I think that we would be the group to activate that moment. So, do you guys want to add who are on the work team? Anything about the budget?
Just knowing that we do still have SURA funding for the next 5 years, I think it's great that we're kind of setting our plans in place for the ongoing programs, but leaving some flexible funds for new opportunities.
Very good. Absolutely. I think that's the way that this has gone historically, things come up. And so I, same thing. I like the idea that we have very specific things that we've worked on in the past and we have money left over or whatever comes our way.
Any comments from anybody in the room on clarification of this? And
Is everybody on board with the actual projects, Graffiti Alley? I mean, we're already into the brochure. We know that we're doing that. Graffiti Alley, what is your thoughts on that? What is your thoughts on Silver Box?
I think Graffiti Alley is an important thing and it's been an important part of Sandpoint, so it's makes sense to keep funding it. My sister came to town with my nephew a couple weeks ago and like we were walking around and she was like, what's going on with this? So I kind of shared with her the whole story. She's like, that is so cool that the city like partakes in that and that you guys are connected. And so, and she's from California. And so like for a big city gal like my sister to be like, that is so neat. I was really stoked to be like, hey, we did that. I'm kind of a part of that.
I like that, they're both established programs, and because we can't use the SURA funding for maintenance of pieces, this is a way that we can effectively like maintain those projects by rotating them. And so it keeps them fresh, it keeps them in good shape. I think it's a good solution.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. So with the Graffiti Alley, would we put a call out to artists like we do for the other things and people would just come and like paint over an older one or something? How does the refresh work?
that's a great question. I think historically it was done with Carol Diener and POAC and Holly kind of more organically. I would like to have a meeting with all of the participants in the project and kind of get a project scope developed and a plan on how it works moving forward.
When you do that, will you include Zabrielle Dillon? She's the Sandpoint art teacher and she had something to do with it. She was like one of the first artists and got her students to do it too. And I'm sure she would love to still be involved and be updated.
I love that.
I'll give you her contact.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we still need to update the mural policy?
Yes.
Okay, so this, I don't know if this would be addressed in that or not, but I just, that's on our project list too.
To-do list.
Yeah, and I also understand that it's the classroom with students, but then there were opportunities for other artists, you know, of all ages to participate in it too, but it just goes through the review process internally with POAC, and I think it'd be wonderful to talk to Claire and Tone and get them, and then they can present. We can kind of have an initial conversation and then we'll all agree on how we see this partnership moving forward. So I'm thinking Holly Walker with the charter school and Zabrielle and Ezra with the public school too. This also brings us to this roster idea, and I'm just gonna talk about this for a minute. Having rosters in a city is really effective. We have like an engineer roster, and what that means is you create a set of criteria and it goes out like an RFP and people apply to be on the roster. And what's great about it is when you go to do a project, you can go to that roster and those people are already pre-qualified. And it really helps streamline the procurement process, but it's a process which helps you understand who are those people that want to work with the city and will be able to accomplish projects. So I'd like to do that roster system with artists. So we'll be able to, and then metal fabricators and different trades that help support our placemaking and wayfinding in our community. So that's something that we have a goal of accomplishing, and I think it'd be really helpful. And then it's also a way to highlight our artist community on our website too, saying these are the individuals that are part of the Sandpoint Public Art roster. A couple of cities that do this well would be Seattle, Spokane. It's not a new concept. I feel it's very effective. The other thing that I think would be helpful is doing an education roster, and what that would be sent out to all the public, private schools in our community, homeschooled as well, which would be private, and then they could say, when the city has a project and we need an education moment, whether it's like Traverse Park doing a community outreach moment or having them participate in an art project, that they're willing and able to pivot and accommodate a project kind of on the whim. And I think that that would be really helpful too. I really appreciate a set for a curriculum, and some schools are able to participate, some are not. And it also would, for me, think it's a very fair playing field. If, you know, the reason why we're working with some schools and not the others.
So that would give, the educator roster would be like a group of people who've shown that they can fulfill a project for the commission by leading a group of students to do the actual artwork.
I think you would be amazing to be on the work team for this, because what you're saying is exactly what we're looking for. And essentially the heart of all rosters, when you're doing that call, would be the set of criteria. And that's the component that's customizable, right? So that's what we have to determine as a group. And I think it's most efficient if we do that as a work team and then we bring it to the larger group as a whole. So we have to create, so far, this is on the to-do list, a set of criteria for our art halls. And then also I include our trades people too within that. And then we need to create a set of criteria for the education roster. And it's like our expectations, what are we looking for and what do we need? So while I have you all here, we're talking about it, who wants to be on that work team?
I'd love to be a part of the education portion.
Perfect.
Yeah, me too, since I was an art educator.
Awesome. We have a volunteer,
The public.
There we go.
citizen, Carol Kovacek. K-O.
It's Kavalcha.
I'm so sorry. I know
Everybody pronounces it that way. It's like, we could
gorgeous.
change our name.
Could you spell your last name?
Kovalchuk.
Perfect. Okay, great. And then I may just go ahead and assign people too. I'm just kidding. Teacher moment. Okay, perfect. So I believe we have a motion that. needs
Yeah,
to be-
are there any other questions on the 5-year plan before we make a motion to? All right, then I would like to entertain a motion to approve this Sir Arch budget 5-year plan.
Will this budget go to Sura for approval?
That's correct.
Council.
That's correct. Great question. I need to work with my leadership on understanding when it gets presented to council, but Sura is its own board. It's actually separate from the city. So the presentation would go to Sura. This is not a set in stone thing too. So anytime we need a little bit of flexibility, but to me, this is a really great way to have information laid out. So when you are able to do future projects, you know what money you have to work with.
I move to present our budget as proposed to Sura.
1 second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? None heard. Motion passes. Great. Kelly, did you get the, I believe so. And Rick, all right. Excellent. Well, then let's move on to number 4, which is the recommendation for refurbishment of the public art beanstalk bench in Harmon Park. And
So we are so lucky because we have a group of amazing community volunteers, and I'm going to let Carol talk about, she's here representing the group. So Carol
Kavalchak.
Kovalchuk. Smith, I should have. had it written down. And I'm gonna give the floor to you, Carol, to explain, if you don't mind explaining a little bit of the history. So essentially, the project scope is that you guys are coming forth, you're requesting to be able to refurbish the Beanstalk bench. So
Right.
if you could talk about the history of the piece and what you're looking to do.
Okay, the beanstalk was donated by the Bonner County Gardeners Association. And there's actually a little plaque over there. Anyway, and so for years it's been updated. And the last time we had it done, I think was about 4 or 5 years ago. So that paint is all peeling off. One of our members already did the power washing on it. I have to go check it today because some of the paint did not come off. And I want to see if I don't want to, if I might not want to take it off because it'll just pull the concrete. But I'm going to be painting it. The Bonner County Garden Association is paying for the paint. You're paying for the supplies. I'm donating my time to paint it. And so what we're just, it's just part of the park. And it's gonna be a little bit different, not much. Flowers will stay the same, a little different shading on it than what was done. So it'll look fresh when it's all finished. And that's basically what we're doing.
So it's not just all green, there's
Yeah,
actual shade.
It's actually gonna be having shading and it'll look like a part of a beanstalk when I'm done.
And Carol, you are an incredible artist.
Yes,
Do you have
I have a website, I do, it's, part of Arts, Fine Art America, I'm on that one. I'm also part of POAC, I'm a POAC artist. So right now we have a show, I have stuff in the show for the month of July.
and you served on Arts Commission?
I've been on the Arts
for
Commission for
decades?
almost,
Yeah.
so.
I feel like it's in good hands with Carol leading the charge and.
What was anybody wants,
Second website? What was the name of the second website?
the website, I'm part of, it's called Fine Art America.
Mhm.
And I sell my artwork, prints and originals from there.
What was the other one?
That's part of POAC, Pondaway Arts Council.
I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah. And we call ourselves, it's short, easier than Pondaway Arts Council. POAC.
So Carol, I noticed that the paint had degraded quite a bit in just the last few years.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I found something that will actually seal and prime the whole bench.
Okay.
So I can paint over everything. The problem is the sealer prime, everything is still it's all latex. So everything has to be extremely dry so that when I seal it, there's no moisture in the concrete. So it's a process that will take a little longer than 2 days because once I know it's dry, then I have to seal it, then I have to let that dry. Then I have to check it to make sure it's dry. Then I can paint over it. Then I can start actually putting the
Okay.
color in on it.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to get a primer tinted so that they do tint the sealer primers so that it's getting more towards the green.
Great.
So it's not white. Scary ghost white.
Yes.
So great.
It's actually harder to paint white on white.
And will this hot weather be helpful?
Actually, for drying out, yeah.
Good.
And then I'll have to work either late afternoon, probably evening or morning.
Right.
Because if not, the paint will be drying on my brush and you'll hear a lot of swearing.
Thank you so much for spearheading this and thank you to all your amazing team too. And thank you for being here and sharing.
Sure.
It's so good to see you again. And I'm gonna just share, this is kind of a fun teaching moment because this is our first request from volunteer citizens to, refurbish a public art piece. And so essentially how it happens is someone comes to the city, they work with me, I work with my leadership, and we seek approval kind of internally. And then I really think it's an important idea to come to you guys and what you do. We're gonna actually have a motion for this. And it's a motion essentially for support of the project. And The only thing with the city that they require would be volunteer waivers to be signed. So I'll make sure to email you those, and if you could get those from all the members that are.
I'm
participating on
probably the only
project.
one gonna be there.
Perfect, and that's just, if anybody in the community wants to volunteer to help on a project and they're on public property, there's a community volunteer waiver that needs to be signed. So,
Good to know.
Ellie and I were just talking about how we love policy procedure, like just having this documented, so we know every time something happens. And within a city, there can be so much change, and so that's what I'm trying to do for all of you guys as your staff liaison, is to get this all documented in writing and then distributed to you guys and in a folder, so everyone knows how processes work here at the city.
So happy to have.
Thank
you.
I am too.
What's in that waiver? Is it just like liability?
That's a
Is
great
it-
question. I found it yesterday and I'll pull it up. Well, yeah, I think I have it in my folder here.
Yeah, I was curious if it was like signing off on work. Like I can't claim
It's
that
more
as.
general, like I'm cleaning up the beach or I'm working, I know Jason did a project with Pop and all of them, you know, worked on that. So it's something that could be, it's a Word document that could be retrofitted.
So when I go out and I sweep the statues and do weed eating around the plants, I
You
should
know,
probably
That's,
say what?
that's a really great question, because you guys are a little bit different because you are commissioners, you're appointed by the city, but I am gonna ask that. So
Yeah,
maybe I
that's a
have
good
you all just sign the waiver and it's forever.
You have a blanket waiver for the whole town.
Same with you, Carol.
You're weed whacking something.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if you know if the waivers are like, sign it once and it's.
You
good
know what I think
forever?
I'd like to do? I'd like to be able to answer your questions, and then I will send you an email out with that waiver.
Okay,
And then we can kind of go from there, maybe talk a little bit more at our next meeting about it. But yeah, really great questions.
that's good. All right, then, do you want to go ahead and entertain a motion to support the Bonner County Garden Association in refurbishing the what did you call it? The vine bench?
The beanstalk. bench.
Beanstalk bench.
I'll motion.
All right, motion, any second?
Second.
Thank you, Rick. All in favor?
And thank you, Carol.
This is so
Yes,
exciting.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Really
All right,
appreciate it.
motion passes. All right, thanks, Carol. All right, onward to 5 then, the recommendation on placemaking elements for downtown city parking lot project. Heather.
So. We've been excitedly talking and planning about the downtown parking lot. I'm gonna go pretty quickly. I always like to present the original slide and then add to the slide so you can see the progression. We did an assessment of the parking lot. We looked for different opportunities. We also heard from the city what they would like to see. Suggestions were placemaking, wayfinding, a kiosk, updating the signs. And they just wanted the work team, the commission to take it from there. And so there's been a variety of different work teams that have gotten together to try to understand different opportunities. We presented to Sura, the last Sura update. I told them that the work team's working on the project right now. We've talked about placemaking, what was there before, it was the farm and school, they loved that idea. And this was something we had presented in the last meeting, but what if we're able to share the story of the farm and school in a really unique and artful way? This is an example of doing a collage with photos and quotes. So it's not your stagnant interpretive panel, which are fantastic, but it's a different way to understand history. What if we were able to, in fun ways, do some storytelling that the historic storytellers could activate? And this goes back to the ruler slapping, Mr. Moon's hand because he was left-handed and the teacher wanted him to be right. So now we're at the project budget. And this project is moving along pretty quickly. Eric Bush is the project manager. He's working with a team of consultants and engineers on what's going to happen with the parking lot. We're still getting the exact idea of that. We know that it will be completely refreshed with new asphalt. They're trying to further understand how parking should be stacked in. They're also looking to have paid parking over time there. So they're still finalizing their details, but what Eric needs from us would be what will be in the parking lot. And so that way they can go ahead and engineer the footprints. An example would be if there's a kiosk, where do we want it and how do we want it to be installed? So they can go ahead and within the asphalt and the concrete install 4 bolts. And then they just need to know the footprint dimensions. So our kiosk can go right on top and be bolted down. So the deliverables was essentially what we needed to get from our work team that we're sharing with you today is how much do we want to spend from the art funds within SURA for this project and what pieces do we want? So this is still at a pretty high level concept. But today, I'm going to be presenting to you what the work team came up with. And then there will be a motion on the table to decide what exactly we want moving forward. And the next steps will be further working on those call to artists and so forth. So we're talking about $40,000. And the items within that $40,000, the elements that would be included would be a bench, a kiosk, 2 sign poles with potentially the sign 2, and this would be like downtown parking lot potentially. Multiple panels that share that story visually. Asphalt paint. And potential add-on according to where the budget would fall would be a bicycle rack.
An artful bike rack.
Artist stipend, the museum stipend, metal fabrication, printing, and then a painter to do the asphalt art. Now, one of the strategic ways that had come up to be able to accomplish this project would be to put out in our call for a graphic artist to create a deliverable image of the artful panels, and we're still trying to understand location and we'll work together on that. But right now we're talking about a fence potentially on the back of the parking lot, and we're still in the what ifs right now. But if you see this tree line, it would be a little bit back behind there. They've removed the janky chain link fence, and then they would install some sort of fence, and I'm working with Eric on that. Ideally, they would, if the fence would come out of his project budget, if it's pretty simple. And then we would install the panels onto that, and the panels would be very large. And let's say there's 5 panels, so it would be a panel, and then let's say it's a wooden fence, and there'd be kind of a nice fence moment, a panel. And what that does is it kind of sets the stage for the design, and that's really what that artist will come up with. And then the museum, so they don't get all of their resources exhausted and helping every single artist who wants to apply. They're gonna come up with a package. And Hannah, do you want to talk a little bit more about what that would look like?
Sure, yeah, we've discussed, as a way to save us time, being able to present the applicants with a resource kit up front, so they all have the same information to work with. It would include historic photos, it would include a history of the Farman School on that site. We've talked a little bit about potentially doing, like hosting an oral history with some of the people in town who went to school there to try to capture some more anecdotal stories. And then we would put that together into a kind of like a package that they would be able to use. It would also include the use of the historic photos in the final printing.
So as we all desire and our master plan, talks to, it is important to support the museum and their endeavors. And I think this is a really wonderful way to be able to support the museum and support an artist. And I remember back in the museum days, kind of with POAC, and you were with POAC, and I had just started in my new role at the museum. We did a project where artists came in and they were tasked to create a portrait. And they needed to, of all of these wonderful women in Bonner County, off of the women who, oh my gosh, I've already forgotten, found that one right. The women who shaped Bonner County, which was an exhibit that was installed. And it was really beautiful to watch the artist go in and soak up the history and then express it in the way that was meaningful to them. And when I'm getting goosebumps right now, when they shared their experience of that, they would cry, or they would say, like, that person was with me, like, they took it to a whole new level in a positive way. And I think that there's gonna be a really wonderful moment with that. And then it'll be really fun to see how an artist decides to share that history. So again, the deliverable would be files that could be printed on those panels. And then I think we say also, and this would go into kind of that set of criteria for the RFP, how would you carry that theme into the parking lot with asphalt art? And I'm still working with Eric, who's again the project manager. He just said you need to make sure that those lanes of parking are very clearly delineated. Otherwise, we can really kind of have fun with it. I also think for asphalt art, it's something our community has wanted, and this is a really great opportunity to do it. And to share how effective it can be. And
Carol can attest, we've talked about this for years.
yay, we're gonna
We're
take to the finish line for all your guys' hard work and brainstorming. So, and that's kind of, to me, a little bit of a question mark, like who's gonna paint it? But I think it's important to have money segmented to somebody that could, just in case, like, we obviously don't want our streets guys trying to stencil, like they would quit on us. So, and then I think it'd be a good idea to kind of all of a sudden separate. So that's kind of one element of the project. And then we have the 2 sign poles, we have a bench, and potentially an artful bicycle rack. And I think that's where the commission works on figuring out what we want those elements to look like. Now, I think the bench and the bicycle rack could be very artful, and that could go back to kind of the fun, cheeky, like, the history of Farmington, let's say. There also, could be money for, I didn't put that in there, interrupting art. There's this story about how they would sneak up to the 3rd floor, which was condemned, and fly paper airplanes and see how far they could go. And there's like a legendary story about an airplane that went like 17 blocks. So like, wouldn't it be fun if there were like sculptural paper airplanes attached to the trees? And then we have the 2 poles and the kiosk. Now that's where I think we want to be potentially a little bit conservative with design. And that's our opportunity to start thinking about wayfinding for the whole downtown area, because how we express that could potentially be so good. It could be inspired by the city to say, hey, we want to duplicate that design and those poles. We'd like to see that in other places for signs downtown. So I think, again, like, I'm always looking for that other opportunity. I think it's arrived, and we could be the ones that could kind of set that stage. So maybe something that could go with the traditional light poles, but that's a little bit more modern and that speaks to modernity in a historical setting. So that's to come. But what do you guys think about the actual assets, the budget, all of the elements within the budget?
I just have a quick question about like the kiosk. So you kind of halfway answered it in regards to wayfinding. But would that be its sole purpose would be just to kind of educate people on things at Sandpoint? Is it an artistic piece? Is it something? Because when I think of kiosk, I think of like something that you kind of either go into or something that's like interactive. Like you sit in it, I'm not really sure. So I guess I'm just asking for a description on the kiosk.
So we had one previous right here. And I think that's something we need to work with leadership on and Sarah.
So historically, it was a map and a list of businesses. I've heard leadership talk about having current meeting information for the city on there. So it wouldn't be necessarily for posters for anyone else, but it would be a city informational resource. And, that's where we're at.
Thank you.
I've also heard leadership saying that they think that they see the parking lot being like a trailhead where it helps you understand where to like eat and go for entertainment. And we just would have to figure out how to do that through the lens of wayfinding where it makes sense and we're not being favorable. So that's part of the next steps of figuring out, we're finding that and then we're finding the design as well. Absolutely.
I gotta have a couple questions, just to clarify, it's just paint, nothing with the actual asphalt itself.
That's
Or not?
correct.
Okay, good. And then the other, with the panels, I was trying to look at Google Maps or Apple Maps. Will that get lost behind the cars? Cause there's no sidewalk, no trail right
We
there.
talked about that yesterday when we were discussing this, and, the panels, that we're talking about are, you can get them in 8x4. And so we're gonna assume that we're gonna put it a little higher, and then I would say the graphic that's telling the story would be higher than where the car would pull in. So potentially you could see it over the cars.
Okay,
And again, I think that's something that we have to work out the details,
Yeah.
but we have been thinking about
thought
that.
about that.
And that's
Yeah.
along the tree line, right?
Yeah, that's along the tree line.
Potentially.
Would we be getting rid of?
Actually,
trees?
through some of the trees.
Well,
I saw that actually, Making, like the art out of the tree that's in the tree
Yeah.
fence. I love that.
And it's a little bit tricky because we still don't know if like, there's gonna still be like the berms, like Eric's still trying to determine that with the engineers. There could be other opportunities to place panels in different areas. But it would also be very blocky if you were to put it like in the center.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Be like booking the side, so it would kind of create, and then it's safe to walk back there too and experience them.
Is there grass between like the front fender and the fence? How much space is there?
And so, not at this point, but I mean, that'll go to design too, whatever they come up with.
Yeah.
Eric
And
might
I-
have some plans.
You should be on that.
So many
Love
great
your
questions.
questions. Can list us off that.
Is there an easement between that property and US Bank? Or is it just kind of like the line?
I'm sure it's the line and we would just
It's all
follow what's
city.
on our property.
Gotcha.
I think someone said the fence was city owned, so
That's what
it would be.
So
along
that's
the
like the
same-
hard stop.
Yeah.
Where we have stop, okay.
And what about the budget? What are you guys thinking about? We priced out some benches and things, and we figure that's a really good number.
I feel like it's very conservative for like the scope of what you guys are looking to do, honestly.
Here's the other thing that's really neat. We are hoping to work with the Kalispell Metal products. They're metal fabricators, are part of the Kalispell tribe. My understanding is it's a trade school. And there's so many reasons why we would want to work with them, right? Like number one, it's actually showing support for the tribe. But then number two, like they're amazing. On the right-hand side, you can see the different varieties that they do. I love this kind of organic bicycle rack. They can do very like classic city furniture. And on their website, they have tentative prices like starting points. So we were kind of working off of that. And of course, we're gonna get a more refined scope once we know what we want. But they're really very reasonable too. And so we're actually looking to partner with them on so many of our other city projects. And so I'm very, very excited about that notion. And then there's also benefits from government to government agency too with procurement. So it's like ding, ding, ding.
Does the high school, 'cause I remember when we did leadership, when we did the tour of the high school, they had a whole like steel fabrication
They do.
class. And I don't know if that's something that could be a nice collaboration or.
Yeah,
just group
that's
project.
that's where the roster is gonna come into play, and then we can send that out and then see how people can participate. So it's quite brilliant. I think, I've worked with the metal department when I was at the museum, we did a exhibit. They're absolutely amazing. I just think for this project, we need some very like dynamic,
Yeah.
moments.
I really appreciate, and I can't remember if the commission has done a project like this before, but I really like that we're bringing in different artists with different skill sets to do portions of the work, through the fabricator, the designer, and ultimately the painter.
Right.
It kind of touches on all the different types of public artists we can work with, which is really neat and to see in one project.
And it kind of represents what Sandpoint's always been about, which is this very artistic little town that people come in, they're like, this is in Idaho? What? So, I agree.
Barry, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, there's quite a few. There's 11 items. They probably need to be broken out in terms of cost, how they. So cost will be the issue.
We did a rough estimate and there's like almost a $15,000 to $20,000 pillow.
Oh.
So it was
Okay.
kind of like, if we did 40,000, could we achieve all these? So certainly within the next step, we're gonna have the realized costs. But I would almost assume we would be under, and that's where we can do some add-ons.
Right.
But this is my first public art project, so I'm like, oh yeah, we'll be way under. No,
Well, of course, there's always gonna be,
yeah.
things we don't anticipate or don't, things change. But we thought 40 was a good number. To get at least, 2 or 3 of the things that we really want. And then have money left over for other projects, because that's the thing, we don't have an unlimited budget, right? So we want to, be a little conservative. Don't spend all our Sura money. Because we have other things we've been holding on for literally years. Downtown, City Beach. So we don't wanna blow our whole wad there. But yeah, I think, looking at what we did yesterday on these items, I think we can get a lot of these items for 40,000. So I think it's a great starting point.
I had a quick question, and this is kind of a little bit outside of kind of what we're talking about, but I heard you mention that they're talking about starting the process of talking about paid parking in that parking lot. What would be the appropriate, like, would that be something that the city is going to be making the decision on? Would that be like a city council kind of decision?
I would assume so. I can't answer that. That was
Yeah.
something I heard in Sura from our mayor. So
Okay.
I'm just kind of sharing things that I've heard. I haven't been,
No, gotcha.
information hasn't been directly shared with me.
Gotcha, just because I've had several downtown businesses come to me basically saying, what are we gonna do? Like, if it's paid parking, how are employees gonna work and be downtown? So I was just curious of where to go so that we could hopefully.
Yes, and I was at a planning and zoning meeting when the hotel was being presented, and I was so pleased and amazed how many people showed up and spoke that we don't usually see at council. And it made such an indelible mark, and I know the whole downtown businesses came.
Yep.
My suggestion would be to encourage them to come to council meetings.
Okay.
But particularly if they see this on the agenda or at, and I'll notify you.
Thank you.
But like, moving forward, the Sandpoint Urban Renewal Agency meetings are at 7:30. They're traditionally the first Tuesday of every month. This one landed on the second. But that's where, you can come and sit in, and then there can be a public comment moment. And those public comment moments go so far in decision making.
Are those here?
They are in chambers. And if you go on, our website, which hopefully we'll have a new one in August
Exciting.
or September, but, you go under meetings. And that's where you can see the upcoming meetings. If you were to click on them, you can look and see what's on the agenda. Yeah, great questions.
Yeah, public comment is
Yeah.
Huge.
huge.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for allowing me to segue.
Oh, totally.
I do like that we're keeping that kind of pillow in this budget, just knowing that the fabrication cost is gonna have to be flexible depending on what the graphic designer presents. I imagine depending on their ideas, there could be a range, in the fabrication costs.
And that's a great question. I think we should definitely determine the kiosk and the poles. Do we want them to come up with the bench design too?
The,
For the
Designer?
artists? Yeah.
perfect.
Okay,
I think it's good to have an oversight on what the artists are doing and giving them some potential for design criteria. But one issue, first of all, I have to correct myself, there's not 11 items, there's 5 items. And the stipends for each of these artists. Those are gonna be a representative, a percentage of the cost, because it's typically far smaller than the piece of work that whatever it is. So, but we have to be careful, at least in my mind, always have to be careful. When I start designing things up ahead of everybody else, and then offer it to an artist and say, this is my idea. And they come back and say, well.
I know.
Yeah,
We had that conversation.
We can
yesterday,
remind
too.
Okay,
we were
so we
like,
have-
what if it was like this? And it's like, no. Yes,
And
sir.
the idea of using history as part of that is an important subject for them to work with. And that's essential for all artists to have a meme within which they can carry their work. So you might want to talk to them about it.
So,
Actually, Caitlin, did you have any questions or comments at this point? Thanks. Go ahead.
so maybe we do a motion and we decide who wants to be on the board.
Sure. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion that we move forward with the Sandpoint City parking lot project budget of $40,000 with this list of potential items.
I have a question. How did you arrive at $40,000?
Well, that's about the price that we want to spend out of the entire Sura allotment. Because I don't feel like we need to spend all our money at the parking lot, right? We want to spread out the love around the district.
Okay, so other items have already been broken out of the zero budget.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll be talking about
That's what we
it.
did
Right.
previous. Yeah, and this was included.
This wasn't.
So it leaves about 80,000-90,000 for other projects into 2029.
Okay.
After we discussed our desire to work with the Kalispell tribe, we looked at, they have a really nice sheet on their website that breaks out prices for different types of products they make. And just knowing that we would be asking for custom pieces, I think we took whatever their quotes were and doubled them for a custom
Sure.
piece.
There's a lot of work that goes into pricing, and I'm really sensitive about that. So when I get to that point and I ask them to do that amount of work, I just want to make sure that we're ready to step up to the plate and committed to work with them. Because there's only so many times you can ask for a quote and then they're gonna stop giving you quotes, right? So here's their website. It's really impressive. If you have time, you should go on. And this is more of just their basics, for individuals in the community or cities. And so Priest River has all their benches and they do like flagpole, like metal pieces, like if you go down, is it
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot, and then Spokane has a beautiful roundabout of sculptural art. It's also the Quest Casino. They do so many things, but this was really helpful because you can see this bench. It's 1380, and they're literally a third of what traditional furniture companies are for city furniture. So it, like, this guy is $520 starting at. And I think they've also done a really good job. If you click on this, it says, okay, these are the pre-done ones where it's included in the cost. Like, I feel like they're very organized. I've worked with the director before, and she's phenomenal. She can get you a really comprehensive quote. So what I would be doing, our work team would get together again. And we talk about kind of a more refined vision of these pieces, sizing and everything, and then I can give her a quote from that with some images of kind of something similar off of the criteria of what the artist would come up with, then we can have a refined budget. So this will be presented to Sura at the next meeting with probably more refined moments.
Very good. Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget, $40,000 for the parking lot. Art.
All right, one second. Keating seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None heard, motion passes. Wonderful, great conversation.
Who would like to be on the work team for this project? Figuring out what that RFP, our call looks like and kind of placement of things.
I'll jump on this.
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be.
Thanks, guys.
All right, then moving on. We'll go to number 6. Recommendation for implementation of community involvement plan for community-driven art program, the Paint the Clouds.
I just want to celebrate you all. Like, look at how amazing our agenda is, and there's so much on there.
There's so much.
Art stuff is on here today. It's just
It
exciting.
is. It's like all of a sudden we pivoted and, okay, so here's, just as a recap, and Ellie and all of you that were a part of this project, thank you so much. This is, what the plows ended up looking like.
Those are adorable.
And I'm gonna go back to, and then Ellie, you came forth with an idea about how to share this project. So I'm gonna pull up the slide and I'll let you talk to it.
Please tell me they have names.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. So we talked about last time, Rick and his family and John and I, primed the plows. Then we came up with the idea to put the faces on them. So that was the design that, Heather showed earlier. So the creations crew showed up, and over the course of 2 days, we painted these fabulous faces on 5 of the plows. So the idea that I had then, after talking to the streets crews and Sherry at Creations and Heather, of course, and then some of it, is we gotta name these plows, right? And so the streets guys were actually already naming them. Naming them after each other. So I thought, well, what if we got the community involved in this as well? And so I made this poster. So basically my idea is, let's get this poster printed, put it on an easel, have some ballots, place it around, put it in the lobby at City Hall here, maybe take the farmer's market. It'll be just a passive sitting there. People can put in their suggestions for the plows.
She already created the PDF.
I already created everything we needed.
Amazing.
And so then, you know, once we get closer to plow season, you know, end of October, whatever, I can make a spreadsheet with all of the community's suggestions, and we'll form a committee of street guys, leadership, you know, maybe a couple of you guys, and we'll name the plows, and then, you know, somebody, I can paint the names on them, and
I think it's so fun. So.
That was my idea anyway,
The
so.
motion is, do you guys want to move forward? Well, this isn't the exact motion, but so what's on the agenda is we're presenting we're giving the update, and here's the presentation of a community involvement plan that we're recommending. Are you guys all in for this plan of community engagement?
Or do you have any other ideas?
Is there a specific reason that it would only be in-person recommendations? Do you not want to include like social media or anything like that?
I mean, I just wanted to make it easy because we don't have a lot of staff time to allot to this, so that would be my only point. I mean, we can put out,
Yeah, it will go on,
Posts.
it will go on Facebook, but Facebook, all social media is just directional. There's no feedback back to the city.
Gotcha.
so that was my big thing about this, is this will be passive, it will be on an easel. You know, there won't necessarily be someone manning the bucket with the ballots in it, so.
It could be at the schools, like it's
Yeah.
really whatever you guys wanna do and what you have time for, and you're like, oh, this person, there's gonna be a lot of kids here, or a lot of people, like, I'll take the poster down to blah, blah, blah.
And of course, we have months to do it if we're gonna,
Is there a prize?
that's the other thing, I didn't think about having a prize, the prize is just the pride of.
Recognition.
That's right.
Recognition of having the plow named.
The plow has to go to that house first.
Yeah.
We had so many great ideas about, let's have them in the parade, and so every time these plows move, it requires a lot of organization, it requires staff people, it requires coordination with leadership over time.
Yeah. Poor Heather had to deal with that a couple of times,
So
so.
this is brilliant.
So that was my idea.
And I think this is the first time at the city, please correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, that we've ever done anything like this. So I love that we're being very friendly and working really well with inner departments. That way we'll get to continue to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think start off easy, and I think people will engage with this. If they don't for some reason, then we can rethink it in a couple months or decide not to do it. But I think this is a great plan for now to make it really simple.
And that could be a good, with the education roster, that could be a really nice thing to do, is like reach out to like teachers and basically say, hey, put it in their classrooms and have it be it a game for the kids. Cause you could also make it a social media campaign of like, this third grader from blah, 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 named this plow,
Yes.
and then that's their recognition.
There's some brilliant mileage off of this program.
Well, and I
It's
think
awesome.
that's the other thing, I was thinking, as we get to winter and plow season. You can use this as a segue into talking about. The offside parking, or, make it a public service announcement.
That's what the guys wanted to do, but I want this to be warm and fuzzy always.
Well, of course, but I think it's okay, I think it's okay to do that.
So, yeah, which they would love. So
Yeah.
they're like, Chomper asks you to not park on the right. hand
We just
side."
need somebody in the community who's an animator and just like make them talk, like social media ad, like, hey guys.
We're here
I have
again.
way too many ideas, I'm sorry, stop me now.
Please be respectful of our street where you park.
We have tons of voice actors here.
Yeah.
Anyway, the street guys were very excited when we were there.
It's fun to watch their
They-
reactions. And I feel like they've really connected to us too.
That's why.
That's cool. Yeah, it's nice having something that, for the most part, everybody's just gonna smile at. and
Yeah.
Not be upset about.
Right.
So- So, yeah, put it on social media.
Yeah, this is a good.
A good thing, yeah.
It's a good one.
The only suggestion would be, I don't know if I saw on your names list, the actual participant who is suggesting.
Oh.
That's
okay.
great,
yeah.
Sure.
So we know where the names are coming
Maybe
from.
in a contact.
Yeah, oh, there you go.
So the
Yeah.
drivers will adopt their name. They
Probably.
get a hat.
There we go.
All right, yeah, we can work on that for sure. All right. Well,
Yay.
any other questions or comments then? All right, does anyone, do we need to?
Yes, motion.
So let's go ahead and entertain a motion to approve this concept of the community involvement plan for the Paint the Clouds project.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Awesome. All right, and then number 7, onward, it's an update on the art program, the Big Billy Monsters.
So I'm sure you are all familiar with this. This was an idea that we all had kind of, we did a what if game a couple years ago, and I have been behind the scenes trying to move this forward. And I'm really excited to announce to you all that STCU has officially agreed to sponsor this project. They're sponsoring 2 Big Bellies downtown. The ones that I've selected would be, one of them's on, like, if you're looking downtown on First Street on the left-hand side in front of Finn McDonald's, across the way from the cannon, and the other one is a little bit sooner than that on Bridge Street, on the other side of the street, so it's kind of like a nice juxtaposition, very visible. And the way that I presented this project is it will be a project done in the schools, back to the education roster, right? So what we want to do before September, and we also need to get that artist roster and education roster going, but to start working on the project scope and the criteria for how this will work within the classrooms. We need to create everything moving forward with art has to be like, there's that set of criteria, but there's gonna be a grading process. And that's how the selection committee decides. It will be through a rating process and a numerical number process that goes back to criteria. And so that all has to be developed for this project, but the idea, and I love the idea, maybe we partner with Kaleidoscope on this. And they do a whole class on how to create a monster that could be wrapped on a box and the mouth opens. I'm not an artist in that regard, so I'm sure there's some brilliant way. So there will be an artist stipend. There's 2 stipends. It's $150 for the 2 artists that are selected, so $150 each. And that was included in the sponsorship for the project scope. So I'm just really excited about this. There was just one little hiccup, and I was able to get funding, moving it forward. I worked with many different leaderships on this project. And it was brought to our attention that the current sign code doesn't support sponsorship on pieces such as this. So Jason Walker, who's the head of my department, has been bringing forth, making an amendment to code, because he also believes that sponsorship is super important and you do need to recognize the sponsor. So right now we're trying to get through that, and then I need to work with Cheryl, who does all of the contracts on a contract for the donation essentially for the project. So I'm still working in the city on all of that good stuff, but I would like to, I think school's gonna be here before we know it, so we need to kind of start thinking about how we get this going for the project scope. So maybe we do the education roster, and then that same team can start working on this project.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, so just kind of an update on this guy,
Okay, great.
celebration.
Any questions, comments? All right, thanks for your hard work on that. I know it's a lot of details to work out.
So now it's culture.
All right, now we're moving on to culture, which is starting with number 8, the update on the Sandpoint Residential History Culture Information.
Okay, so we are officially launched. We talked about this in our last meeting. This has now gone out on, so within the city, we kind of have 2 different ways that we do our outreach. We're really lucky to do all of our cultural enrichment through Parks and Recreation. They have this really comprehensive way that they do outreach. through, and I think you guys have over what, 2,500, 3,000 people that are linked into your Facebook. Cami does such an extraordinary job with like press releases just for Parks and Recreation, so she's working really hard on getting this out on her end. And then we have it on our city website. If you go to the front page, it's under news and announcements. Jason announced it at council. It's also on our Facebook page. And then Hannah, you also did some outreach with it too.
Yeah, we put it in our newsletter, which went out to 800 people or so.
It's amazing. And I kind of think of this as, again, more of a passive outreach. It's a living document that we can change at any time. We can push out at different times. It's kind of really up to us, but the why we're doing this goes back to currently we're working on updating our historic walking tour brochure, which functions as our landmark program. And we've seen a lot of really successful rehabilitations with residential properties. And so it's a way for us to be able to capture houses that could qualify for the walking tour brochure. And then also it helps enrich the museum's archives, because everything in these Google Forms, if it's okay to the individual, can be donated to the museum's archives, which will help with research requests on residential history. And maybe there could be a giant digital research ArcGIS map down the road. We've got big plans, right? I just want to celebrate all of you on this project, but also Ellie and Barry for their amazing graphic art, urban art sketch. The brand, the consistency of branding. I think that we are role models for how you do great outreach, right? And I did not see this, but so fabulous. There's a little shadow figure in the window. I just thought that was amazing.
Wow.
There's a ghost in the house.
I put the ghost in the house.
Oh, is that you? I was like, oh, you stole my heart. And so one of the questions is like, is there anyone that's living there that's no longer living? And I was like, oh, I just think it's so great, because wouldn't it be great to have a ghost tour? So this is just a great way to, it's like a trial run to see how effective through a Google form we can collect history from the community. So please share the link. You don't have to own a home to share its history, you know, just anything you know in the residential history. So it's up to us to kind of push this out.
And just a note on the graphics, you may notice, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but you may notice that it's the same style and colorways as the commercial buildings on the front of the walking tour brochure draft. So we're trying to create kind of a consistent branding through our all of our items. So yeah, I think it's working so far.
I'm just waiting for someone to reach out and say, hey, you drew my house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You use real houses in town.
I did see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's great, but it's urban sketch, so if someone, you're like, I don't know, is it? They're like, yeah, I love it. I'm like, yes, it is. That does look like your house.
Yeah, it looks great, and I'm interested to maybe check in next month and find out what kind of responses we've gotten.
And it's also a tool for you guys, so if you're talking to someone and they're like, oh gosh, or they're just all of a sudden sharing this story, I just shoot them a link and be like, could you mind writing that down on this, you know, so it's
Yeah.
a really great tool.
Well,
Okay,
and just to jump in there, I think just going through this, the Travers deal, all that, it just a reminder to council to use us, since we are putting this stuff together. They're making some decisions that they might not know the history. So if you know, something comes up, just to keep it on their mind, to come back to us to get some of this information.
Good point.
should talk about that at council.
Yeah.
Actually, that might be something that we go up and use our 3 minutes as citizens to
That's a good idea.
bring up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's really smart. Yeah, right now, the leadership is wanting, things kind of streamlined. So the director and department heads give all the reports with the whole department. And that's just how it's gonna be moving forward, but I encourage all of you guys to maybe highlight our programs through public input as a way to kind of
So would it be,
bring vitality.
so that brings an idea, would it behoove us to, if there's something on the agenda or, well, that we need to talk about, that I let you guys know and we go as a group and we each have our 3 minutes?
So what if I cause Jason always asks for updates from me. I always highlight like one thing, I send it out to all of you and encourage, and then Ellie, you. Well, we can't have a dialogue, I guess, according to Robert's Rules of Order. But anyway, please come and talk about it, or.
Is there anything against like highlighting an agenda item and just basically having a blanket email saying, hey, folks, this is on the agenda, just thought you'd be interested?
I will, upon your request, put that together before council.
Yeah, just because I know
This will be the update from our commission too.
Yeah. Because I get the agendas, but yeah, if they're still kind of broken up the same way, I don't get a chance to look at all the agenda items, and sometimes it's nice to have like,
Well, the staff report isn't actually on the agenda, what is going to be on the staff report, so.
Like that.
just dissecting.
Okay, yeah,
You guys speak city.
yeah, because we all want to be involved, right? So this is, I think, the way going.
But I think seeing you guys in the commission and having a presence is very, very important. And you guys know I love doing my presentations, so.
Well, and they're probably sick of me, seeing me sitting in the audience, so. If we're all there.
It's like a warm blanket.
I was gonna say, look, it's sick of seeing you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You guys are sweet.
She's the groupie.
All right, any other questions or comments on that? All right, great, okay, then. Number 9 is the report on July's Community Character Hour. Did anybody catch the radio show, 2 weeks ago about what tourist parks? It was fantastic.
I listened to the rebroadcast and I was a little embarrassed by how like, I was like, we're so funny.
I enjoyed it. But anyway, coming up, the next one on it's the last Monday of every month. And coming up, the topic is city docs, which is gonna be cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And it's just been fun too. So we're working with, at the museum, Dan Evans and Will Valentine, and they're like the research team that's unearthing like subjects and topics that haven't really been out there.
City Docs in particular is like, we have nothing ready to go.
Yeah.
So they're really digging into new stories, which will be.
It's
really
super fun and it's just so much fun to share. But sorry, I'm gonna go there. Have you guys ever seen Delicious Dish on SNL?
Oh,
I'm haunted by
yes.
that. It reminds me so much of that.
Aren't they the NPR ladies?
Yes.
that docs?
Oh my God. Once you see that, you can't unsee it. And then I think of Hannah and I with like the bright, like pink sweaters and being like,
If you guys need wigs, I have tons of like Midwestern mom made wigs.
yeah.
You guys sound fabulous. I was really.
Fun and
I was
history.
really-
But we're having fun with it. And I think the whole community is really enjoying it too, so.
I think so too. So great job, everybody. All right, then, let's move on to the next thing is historic. So number 10 is update on the ISHF CEG grant for the walking tour brochure.
Perfect. So this is Idaho State Historical Society, which is different than SHPO, and it's their certified enhancement grant. And historically, we've used that for all of this. So as a reminder, we applied for it. We applied for 2,500, which was the most you could apply for, with the matching funds of the SURA money for the update of the walking tour. I feel really confident about it. Fingers crossed that we receive it. I believe we are notified in September, so I just wanted to let you know that it was successfully submitted. And, yeah, it was a really good one.
All right, any questions about that grant? It looked really good when I reviewed it, so great job on it. Yeah. All right, then, number 11, the update on the historic walking tour summer program.
So we had our last one led by Michael Bigley, our historic storyteller. It was the last, so they're always the last Friday at 10 o'clock. And that was in Canada, Canada, June. And Ellie, you're so great. You were there to be a friendly face and support the project.
Yeah, we had 12 people show up. I don't know that anyone actually signed up ahead of time.
I don't believe we had any registration ahead of time on this one.
So
Not required, encouraged.
exactly. So 12 people showed up. I know at least 3 were locals, which was great. So that means that, you know, people want to hear the history. And Michael's great. I was only able to stay for the first 10 minutes, but yeah, he's very informative and very outgoing. So
Michael's my like intellectual English professor to a T with a good sense of humor. Andrew's like the big showman. And so they make such a dynamic duo.
It's so great. So we are trying to work on building that historic storyteller group with locals and museum individuals. And I know you're doing tours through Parks and Recreation. How have your tours been going as well?
They've been pretty good. We've had about, I'd say like 6 to 8 people at each one, which has been a pretty good group size. The registration process has been a little cumbersome. Okay, so we've had a lot of people reaching out, asking for help to navigate that system, but I know Bree's working with Katie to see if there are any ways we can streamline it. Yeah, but people are figuring it out and showing up, which is great.
That's really good. I think every year we'll just keep improving. I did some onboarding with Michael. I did some tours in Alabama from some historic storytellers, and I was able to bring some of that. So I did a further deep dive on architectural detail, more resources to provide them. But I think that this is an opportunity for historic storytellers to take research and then make the tour bespoke to what works for them, because each personality is very different. Summers are a little tricky and these are volunteers. So the good news is they're having fun, they're enjoying it, and they're loving it. We're just gonna keep trying to find support in building it.
any questions? All right. Then I guess we're on to, were we calling this something different?
I think we're branding it, round the room.
Around the room.
Or round table, so
Round
we're like knights. Yeah,
Round table
We shall
general
bring
announcement.
We could like facilitate the round table. That was-
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
All right, does anyone have any announcements or comments or whatever?
I've got a couple. LPO is gearing up for Steel Magnolias is our next show in the fall. And then we're gonna do Christmas Carol. And so Steel Magnolias auditions are next week. I'm stoked because we've got so many amazing women who are auditioning. It is a show with 6 women, but gender neutral casting is always I'm always a fan of. If you want to audition or know anybody that would, lporep.com is our website. You can register there. And then second announcement, which Caitlin will be very excited to hear about.
Yeah.
We are partnering with the Canada Theater, and doing a summer camp with them. It's gonna be July 22nd through August 10th with 2 performances, and we'll be doing Alice in Wonderland. And Caitlin, you can report to Rob that we have 29 kids
Oh
signed up,
my God, that's awesome.
and that is with no advertising, like.
Oh my
it's just
gosh.
Social media, so
So awesome.
I'm just
Wow.
floored by it, but very excited.
Speaks to how much the community loves you, Keely.
You too, and we actually got to do the parade together, which was so much
Oh,
fun.
fabulous.
So we had LPO rep actors and kiddos from the community and get up on the float and dress up, and it was just so much fun. So very, very excited for all of those things. The performances for Alice in Wonderland will be August 9th and 10th. And then Steel Magnolias will be October 11th, the weekend of October 11th and the following weekend. And then we'll be doing Christmas Carol the week of Christmas. There's a lot of stuff going on, and my brain is kind of exploding.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
What are the hours of that camp?
It's gonna be Monday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m.
For 3 weeks. Good on ya.
Yeah. Our cap is 35.
Okay.
So like, that's why I wanted to share with Caitlin, because we have 29, so we literally have 6 spots left.
That's incredible.
Wow. That's so cool.
I checked my registration software yesterday and nearly fell over in my chair.
Did you get a lot of signups after the parade?
We were sitting at like 17 before the parade. And so I mean, I had a bunch of parents be like, should I register on my phone right now? Like, cause they were worried about it, but then, here we are. So I guess so, like, it was brilliant advertising. The Canada got big banners to put on the side of the trailer, and it was just it was so cool. I still have to talk to Rob to get one of those for our office.
We have 2 programs we're working on in the next month. One is gonna be an all-day workshop on making shadow puppets to complement our play exhibit. And we will only have 16 spots, so we're gonna send out applications at the end of this week. But that will be at the end of July. And then we are also collaborating with the Boy Scouts Troop 111. This is their 90th anniversary, so we're helping them celebrate that by setting up a booth at the county fair where they will be learning how to conduct oral histories. So when anyone, but they're especially going to be reaching out to some of the oldest former or Boy Scouts in the community.
Wow,
So
really
that'll be a fun way to help them. It's an interesting skill to learn. I think they're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So cool.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, with that then, thanks for a great meeting. We're adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Caitlin.
Thank you.
Bye.